Your alarm goes off at 6:45 a.m., and before your eyes are even open, you already know the shape of your day: commute, inbox, meetings, a boss who is not you, hours of your one and only life traded away for a number somebody else decided on. Now erase all of it. No alarm, no commute, no boss, no job. For 300,000 years, that was simply how being human worked. Economists assumed your ancestors lived one exhausting scramble for survival, dawn to dusk, just to stay alive. Then, in the 1960s, one scientist actually went and counted the hours. What he found didn't just surprise him, it broke an assumption an entire economy had been quietly built on for 2 centuries. His name was Richard Lee, and in 1964, he walked into the Kalahari Desert to live alongside the Kungsan, one of the last people on Earth still feeding themselves entirely by hunting and gathering. Lee expected to find brutal, grinding labor. Instead, he carried a stopwatch and a notebook, and he tracked exactly how many hours it took the adults around him to find enough food to survive. The number he landed on was about 15 hours a week, not 15 hours a day. 15 hours total to feed an entire family. Sit with that, because this week you'll spend nearly 3 times that just commuting and answering email before your actual job even starts. Lee presented his numbers in 1966, and one of the anthropologists in that room, Marshall Sahlins, stood up and gave the idea a name that stuck: the original Affluent Society. Not affluent because they had more stuff. Affluent because they had something you don't: time. What did they do with the other 150 hours? This is where it gets strange, because the honest answer is almost nothing you'd recognize as either work or rest. Picture it. No clock, no shift to clock into, no manager checking if you're at your desk. You wake up when your body wakes you, not when a machine screams at you too. The morning is for foraging. Small groups moving out together to dig roots, track animals, strip berries from a bush. By early afternoon, you're back with more food than the group needs for that single day. And once the food is in, your day is, by any modern definition, over. Anthropologist James Suzman spent years living with the Juhwansi of Namibia, and he documented what all that time actually looked like once the hunting was done. People slept in the middle of the day for hours, something almost nobody with a job still does. They gambled, betting arrows and beads on games of pure chance, laughing, arguing, losing everything and starting again. They groomed each other, picked lice from each other's hair, the same bonding ritual chimpanzees use to hold their troops together, because your body has never stopped craving that kind of touch. And at night, everyone gathered around the fire and the stories started. And nobody in that circle was working, and yet everybody was completely occupied. Your children wouldn't have gone to school either. There was no bell splitting a learning day off from the rest of life. A 4-year-old girl followed her mother into the bush and learned which roots would kill her by watching her mother's hands, not by sitting at a desk memorizing it. A boy shadowed the hunters for years before anyone trusted him with a real weapon, absorbing patience the way you absorb a language, with no test waiting at the end. And some nights when the gambling had wound down, whole camps rose together and danced in a circle for hours, working themselves into trance to heal the dying. It wasn't leisure. It wasn't labor. It was something closer to prayer, and English still doesn't have a word for it. But here's what gets left out of the version of this story that goes viral. Later, researchers went back and checked Lee's numbers, and they found a hole in them. He only counted the hours spent actually chasing food. He didn't count the hours spent cracking nuts, hauling water, processing meat, making tools, watching children, the invisible labor that filled most of the remaining daylight and still never makes it onto a resume. Anthropologist Kristen Hawkes, studying the Hadza of Tanzania in the 1990s, found something else. Grandmothers, women decades past their own childbearing years, spending 8 or 9 hours a day digging tubers under the sun, not for themselves, but to keep their grandchildren alive while a new baby nursed. That's not 15 hours a week. That's nearly a full modern workday, every day for the rest of her life, unpaid and essential. So, which version is true? Both. Your ancestors were not lazy, and they were not being crushed by labor either. What they didn't have was never free time. What they didn't have was a job. So if that's true, where did the job actually come from? Not from laziness finally disappearing. From something stranger: surplus. About 10,000 years ago, when humans in the Fertile Crescent started planting wheat instead of foraging for it, everything changed. and not for the better at first. Dig up the skeletons from those first farming villages, and you'll find something brutal written directly into the bone: shorter bodies, ruined teeth, more disease than their hunter-gatherer ancestors. Early farmers likely worked longer hours, ate a narrower diet, and got sicker doing it, all to produce a surplus of grain that somebody else would eventually control. And the moment there was a surplus, there was something to own, something to guard, something to tax. Specialists appeared, people who grew no food at all, soldiers, priests, scribes, and somebody had to pay them. That is the seed of the job, trading a fixed block of your one life for someone else's resources. But the job you actually live inside, the alarm, the shift, the clocked hour, that part isn't ancient at all. Historian E.P. Thompson traced it to something almost embarrassingly recent: the factory floor. Before mechanical clocks were cheap, people worked by task and by sun. Finish the field, finish the batch, done. Factories couldn't run that way. They needed every body in the same place at the same hour, every single day, so employers installed bells, then clocks, then time cards, and retrained a species that had worked by sunlight for 300,000 years to instead obey a number on a wall. Which means the single most defining feature of your entire life, the job, the thing that decides when you wake, when you eat, when you're finally allowed to rest, is maybe 200 years old. Out of roughly 300,000 years our species has existed, that is less than 0.1% of the story. Your ancestors were not lying by a river doing nothing, and they were not grinding themselves into the dirt either. They were foraging, resting, teaching, arguing, grooming, gambling, dancing until dawn, all inside the same unbroken hours, with no name for the difference between on the clock and off it. Tomorrow morning, when that alarm rips you out of sleep and your entire day snaps into shape before you've even opened your eyes, understand what that feeling actually is. It isn't natural. It isn't ancient. It's a factory bell that never stopped ringing. And somewhere underneath it, your body is still lying there in the dark, waiting for the sun to tell it when to start. If this rewired how you think about your own alarm clock, hit like. It helps this video reach the next person who still thinks a 60-hour week is just human nature. Subscribe if you want more of your assumptions taken apart like this one. And if you know someone who complained about their job this week, send them this, because they need to know it's only 200 years old too.